Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. My name is Varun. I head the hospital success team at Medlearn. Medlearn team is excited to connect with you all once again in its popular series of industry expert session, where we ensure that healthcare professionals get an opportunity to interact with seasoned leaders from healthcare. I welcome each one of you in today's webinar. I welcome you all in today's webinar on unveiling the miracle of organ donation. So before I introduce to our esteemed speaker for today's session, we would like to give you a brief about Medlearn on what we are and what we do. I request Subhashri to kindly play the video for us. Thank you.
Hospitals work round the clock to serve patients. Being at the center of the action, hospital physicians and staff must confront every situation and every challenge. They must also keep up with evolving health needs and knowledge through ongoing comprehensive training programs. What they need is a promising solution to ensure a continuous learning journey.
In today's world, technology is transforming life. Be it taxis, food delivery, everything we need is at our fingertips. Education is also going through a transformation, and we are at the forefront in the healthcare industry.
Medlearn is a comprehensive learning, training, and skill development platform incubated at Impulsys in India for healthcare professionals to attain the right mix of content, learning, and skills that help them throughout their career. The platform offers a wide variety of courses that enable hospitals to meet their employee training and development needs in areas of quality compliance, soft skills, and induction. The platform is designed in a way that it enables easy tracking of the real-time status of their learning progress. What's unique about this platform is that it's accessible anytime, anywhere, ensuring quality learning literally at your fingertips. Hospitals can now assign courses and track the competencies of users on specific topics with Medlearn's intelligent assessment tool, which gives them better administrative control. Its superior courseware helps hospitals provide standardized care and bridge skill gaps at every level in the organization. The healthcare professionals will also become more efficient and empowered when their learning journey progresses with ease and at their convenience. Let us unite to improve healthcare in India by spreading knowledge through technology. Medlearn. Better prepared for better care.
Thank you, Subhashri. Now I would like to invite the guest speaker for today's session. Medlearn team is really privileged to have Ms. Pallavi Kumar as a speaker for today's session on the topic Unveiling the Miracle of Organ Donation. Ms. Pallavi Kumar is the Executive Director of Delhi NCR region at Mohan Foundation, which is Multi-Organ Harvesting Aid Network Foundation. She's the executive director of Mohan Foundation, a national NGO that has been working for almost 25 years to promote deceased organ donation and transplantation in the country. She was instrumental in setting up the NCR office of Mohan Foundation in 2011. She has subsequently provided support to start the Rajasthan and Manipur office of the foundation. Ms. Pallavi's skill lie in working closely with the hospital, both government and private, to help them to put systems in place, promote deceased organ donation. She has been closely and passionately involved in getting the task aligned for speaking to the families in their time of grief and loss, encourage them to consider organ donation to save other lives. She's one of the main trainers of the foundation, has been part of capacity building programs across the country. Ms. Pallavi has scaled Everest Base Camp in 2018 and Mount Kilimanjaro in 2019 as a tribute to the organ donors and their families. I welcome Pallavi ma'am in today's webinar. Once again, it is our privilege to have her as a speaker in our today's session. Um, Pallavi ma'am, over to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think I got dropped out. Thank you so much, Varun. Thank you, Medlin, for this opportunity. My least preferred way of speaking to people like this online, not being able to see who I'm speaking to, because it is a topic that is so closely connected to each one of us. Uh, it has relevance in everyone's life. So I ideally like to have it as an interactive session, but here we are. Can you please close this introduction so I can share my, yeah, thank you so much. Let me just open up my presentation and I will. Can you see it? Can you see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am, it's loading, I guess. Can you just click on it? I could see the folder.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
Ma'am, I could see the folder, but I cannot see the presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Subhashri, if you can help, I mean, you can share madam's presentation. We can help her with that.
No, I'll just try to do it once if you can. 1 second. Is that fine now?
Yeah,
All right, I'll just make it full screen.
yeah.
All right, so my topic today is organ donation, really the gift of life. I usually like to ask people why why should we donate organs? Why at all there is a need to have conversation around organ donation? Why should Medland have organized a session on organ donation? Why do I keep getting called to so many places? So yes, many of you say, it's a good act to do. It's a noble act to do. You save other lives, and yes, that's true. But more than the goodness of it, there's something that I want to show you here. I want to acquaint you with some statistics. And let me, at the very outset, make it very clear to all those who are listening that these statistics only represent the bigger metros, and bigger cities. What is happening in two-tier cities or smaller cities, they don't even make it to these statistics. They don't even make it to these national statistics because transplant as an activity is only happening in those 14, 15 bigger metros and bigger cities. So people, what happened? Hello,
Ma'am, please go ahead. We can hear you.
but I can't see my presentation. Is it there?
Yeah, it's there.
See it. Something happens, some sound happen, and I can't see my. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So it is estimated that each year about 2 lakh Indians require some kind of an organ transplant, and less than 10% are able to get timely help. Now, what do I mean when I say less than 10% are able to get timely help? It simply means that there are most of 90% of people do not get the organ that they require for a transplant, for a lifetime transplant. People are simply dying because they did not get an organ in time. So that's the demand supply gap in organs in our country. And I will talk about it as we go further. At least 10 patients die every day while on waiting list for organs. Once again, these waiting lists are only maintained in those 15, 20 cities across the country. People in villages and smaller cities do not even make it to a waiting list. They die even before that. And every 10 minutes, a new name is added to the waiting list. Now, if you look at people with kidney failure, about a little over 2 lakh people require are suffering with end-stage organ failure. Each year, only roughly around 7,500 kidney transplants are done. Kidney, as many of you will know, has the option of dialysis. So dialysis performs the role of the failed kidney, and people can live on. Of course, it's not the greatest life, but about 21,000 people avail dialysis. What is happening to this big chunk of people who are neither getting dialysis nor getting transplants? I'm sorry to say they're simply dying. If you look at liver transplants, about 50, 60,000 liver transplants are required each year. Very small number, only about 900 receive transplants. And these are largely living transplants. I will get to that subsequently. If you look at heart transplants, again, about 50,000 people require heart transplants. Only 50 to 70 heart transplants take place in the country each year because heart definitely requires a person who has died, unlike liver and kidney. Um, our country, our country's transplant programs mostly rests on living donors. What do I mean by that? A person who's alive and can give an organ. Now, what can this person give? Kidney, because we all know we have two kidneys and we are designed in such a manner that we can survive with one. And liver, fascinating organ. You take away a portion of the liver for the person who's alive and transplant it to a person who needs a liver transplant. And within a couple of months, both the portion of the liver that was left behind and the liver that was transplanted into the recipient, they regenerate themselves to almost 100% capacity. So it's a very fascinating organ. Now, for every other transplant, be it lung transplant or a heart transplant or a pancreas transplant or a intestine transplant, you need a person who has died. Unfortunately, in our country, 95% of the donors are living donors and only 5% are deceased donors, whereas in any healthy economy state, it should be the reverse. More people who have died should, the organs should come out of them instead of subjecting living people through the risks of taking an organ out of them. Okay, now who can be a donor? I've already spoken about it, but just about anybody at any age can be a donor. We've had our youngest donor has been a child who was a couple of hours old, and our oldest donor has been someone, I think, 91 years old in Max Hospital, Saket, a couple of years ago. I myself counseled a family where the donor was 88 years old. So I will also come to that, your queries around that. Now, there is a living donor, person who's alive, can, like I said earlier, can give one kidney and a portion of the liver. Who can this living donor be? Now, all the work that we are doing in the area of organ donation and transplantation is governed by what is called the Transplantation of Human Organs Act. It was passed in the year 1997. And it says that this living person has to be an immediate blood relative. And how does the act defines the blood relative? Parents, mother, father, children, son, daughter, siblings, brother, sister, grandparents, grandchildren, and they've also included the spouse, husband and wife in this living blood relative category, even though spouse is not a blood relative. But you can easily take an organ out of this group of people. Now, if I had to look at myself, today, if I needed a kidney or a liver, I can only think of my husband and my child and my daughter. Daughter also only in the last few years because the person has to be 18 years and above. Now, first is that they should be willing to give. Can't assume that everybody wants to give. Well, I would like to believe that both my husband and my daughter would like to be willing donors. Now, just their willingness to donate is not enough. There are multiple other issues: blood matching, tissue matching, their kidneys health, their organs health. All of these determine whether they can be suitable donors to be or not. And sometimes it may happen that both my husband and my daughter are not suitable donors to me. Government of India understands that and allows for other than near relatives. It could be your distant relatives, chacha, mama, tau, cousin. It could be your neighbor. It could be a colleague. But these cases are presented to an authorization committee. It's a government instituted authorization committee. And what is this committee trying to see? A, that whoever is giving out of their own free will, out of an act of voluntarism and altruism, and there's no force on this person. Very often the committee sees, oh, the man is got a kidney failure since the last 6 years, but 6 months ago he's married this woman. Subsequently, is relatively poorer than him. obviously the authorization committee will look at this case suspiciously, because one is lack of force and second is no monetary involvement. In our country, any exchange of money in cases of organs is illegal and a punishable act. And because you're talking about a living donor, whose consent is important? The person themselves, because he's alive. He should be wanting to give, he should be in a position to give consent. So people, if you're mentally ill or if you're mentally, retarded is not the right word to use, you cannot be you have to be in a sound mental state to be able to take this decision. Coming to what is of my interest today and what is the foundation's interest, deceased donor. Not to be confused with diseased. The person is not diseased. He's deceased. That means he or she has died. And unlike the living donor, who can only give one kidney and the portion of the liver, this person can give every life-saving organ. When can this person give? When the person is brain dead. I will come to that after this. And now whose consent becomes important? The person has died. So the family who's in charge of the body, the immediate decision makers, will take the decision whether they want to donate or not. And like living donation, no monetary benefit. At this point, I usually like to show a small film on brain death, but I will keep it till the end. I don't want to disturb the process here. What is brain death? And I always ask this question when I have the audience in front of me. How many of you heard about brain death? Is it a familiar term? Is it the same as coma? Is the person who's brain dead alive or dead? And invariably, I see that there is so much confusion in the room, and most people do not understand brain death. Brain death is not to be confused with coma. A person who's in coma is alive, may not be showing reflexes, may be unconscious, may not be, responding to major stimuli, but the person is alive. A person who's brain dead is a person whose entire brain has died. So it's usually a result of some severe injury to the brain, very often accident cases, fall from the top or whatever. It could be a gunshot, asphyxiation, many of these stroke. These are some of the cases in which a person becomes brain dead. So if there's a serious irreversible injury to the brain, the person is brought to the hospital. Because the breathing is compromised, the person is put on a ventilator and then doctors start doing whatever they need to do to stop the swelling and bleeding inside the brain. And if that does not happen, despite whatever efforts the doctors are making, if the swelling inside the brain does not stop, the oxygen supply to the brain is cut off and the brain dies. But because you were put on a ventilator before the brain died, the ventilator is still pumping the heart and the organs are still getting oxygen and blood. So it's a very unique situation where the person has died, because brain death is death. The person has died, but the organs are still alive on a ventilator. And this is the time people like me who have been trained to do this work, we approach families and we request them for organs to save other people's lives. And believe you me, it is not an easy job. I must have counseled hundreds and hundreds of families, but every time I have to muster the same courage, because for this family, this grief is very, very new. This loss is very new and they do not understand brain death. If you look at a person who's brain dead on a ventilator, the chest is moving up and down. It looks like the person is breathing, and it's very difficult for families to accept that their loved one has died. But it has to be understood that brain death is death, and the person's heart is only being pumped with the ventilator. The moment you remove the ventilator, that will also stop. Now, you're talking about somebody's life and death. It's not a frivolous issue. So very, very strict guidelines have been laid down by the government of India. No hospital can just get up and start declaring brain death. You have to be licensed to declare brain death. And it is a team of doctors, which is called a brain death committee, that is approved by the government. Only those doctors can conduct these brainstem deaths and certify someone brain death. And at any given point of time, 4 doctors will conduct these tests. They will record the results of their tests in the form that has been laid down by the government. The tests are repeated after a gap of 6 hours. Again, 4 doctors will repeat all those tests. And it's only when both the tests are done at an interval of 6 hours. And there's a series of tests that have been laid down by the government. You have to record each one of them. It is only when a person has gone through these processes that a person is declared brain death. I don't know how many of you heard about this lady called Aruna Shanbag. She was a nurse in a hospital, government hospital in Bombay. And sadly, she was raped by a ward boy. He put a chain around her neck and the blood supply to the brain was cut off. But the brain didn't die fully. She was in a what is called a vegetative state, which means for 40-45 years, she was fed, she was just lying. She couldn't get up. All her needs were taken. She didn't know what was happening. She couldn't talk. But please understand, she was alive. Nobody was going to talk to her about organ donation. We had heard about people who go into coma, sometimes go into extended coma for months altogether. They go into coma. Nobody will talk to them about organ donation because medically and legally these people are alive. Organ donation is declared dead, in this case, brain dead. All right. Like I said, these are some of the most common causes of brain death. So sadly, many of our donors are young people who are driving two-wheelers and do not take the precaution of wearing a helmet. So it's my sincere appeal to people to take care. Head injuries are a very common cause of brain death. So is stroke and so is brain tumor. Once again, I want to reiterate and I want to make sure that everybody understand that it is not the same as coma. Coma, very simply put, means a person in a deep state of unconsciousness. Now, from coma, you can recover. Many people come out of coma and they recover and go back home. Sometimes they move into what is called persistent coma for many months, for many days. Very often they move to vegetative state, and I spoke about Aruna Shanbag. All of these states, the person is still alive. Nobody's talking about organ donation. Organ donation conversation only comes up when the person has been declared dead, brain dead. Now, how do you measure the organ donation rates of a country? Number of people who went ahead and donated in 1 million people, in 10 lakh people. See where India is. Not even one person in 10 lakh people in our country goes on to become a donor. That's how low our donation rates are. Spain worldwide is the leader in organ donation and has an organ donation rate of 49.50 per million population. Other countries are doing well. I wanted to show you Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is where the Mohan Foundation began its work. We got great support from the government. We got great support from the private sector. Tamil Nadu has an organ donation rate of 1.5 per million, and Chennai as a city has an organ donation rate of 15 per million. So what I'm really trying to say that if awareness is created, if systems are put into place, if government supports, we, like the rest of the world, want to do well. That is the Transplantation of Human Organs Act. Sadly, it was passed at a time when India was looked at as the commercial kidney market for the world. It was so shameful. Anywhere, so Dr. Sunil Shroff, who started the foundation, who started Mohan Foundation, he was working in UK. And he was saying, I should be so mortified because it was literally like, oh, you need a kidney. Why don't you go to India to get one? That's how bad the situation was. Because as long as there'll be poverty in a country, and as long as there'll be an organ shortage, this will keep happening. Poor people will continue to sell organs. They will be exploited for their kidneys. They're the easiest target. So the act has come down very, very strongly on any trafficking of organs. And punishments are really, really high, not just for the middleman, but for the buyer, for the person who's received it, for the hospital, and the head of the hospital is held accountable. So it's really come down. I am not saying that it has ended. Hopefully in the years to come, it will end, but it has come down. But we believe as a foundation that if more people begin to donate, if we end the organ shortage, poor people will stop being exploited for kidneys, and just given 50,000 or 1 lakh for an organ that is really, a part of their body. And like I said, it defined the organ types: live, related, live, unrelated, and deceased. Now, just to reiterate, if a person has a natural death, as you and I understand death, how if somebody had to ask you what is death, we say, oh, the heart stops beating. That's how we understand death. So if I'm right now, as I'm talking to you, if I have a cardiac arrest and I die, no matter how strongly and passionately I feel about organ donation, I cannot be an organ donor. Because the moment your heart stops beating, your organs stop getting oxygen and blood and they also die. You can be an organ donor only in the controlled situation of brain death, where you are in a hospital, in an ICU, on a ventilator, and you have a brain death. And you were on a ventilator, so the organs can still be kept alive with the help of. So please understand this difference. Very often we get calls from people who say, we've just had a death in the house. Can we donate the organs? We cannot take the organs, but in natural death, we can take what are called tissues. So corneas, in the case of eye donation, is a tissue, skin, bone, or heart walls, all of these on the left-hand side are tissues, and people can donate tissues. So I really want to now speak about eye donation, because no matter how you die, just about everybody can be an eye donor. And what do you take in the case of eye? Corneas. What are the corneas? It is a thin, transparent covering on top of the black portion of the eye. The black circle, there's a thin, transparent covering. It's such a small portion of the eye, and it gives sight to 2 people. Sometimes they cut up corneas and use it for 4 people. Imagine the beauty of it. And it is such a small process. It is such a simple process. I can say that with confidence because my own father, we donated his corneas. The team from the eye bank came, entered the house, retrieved his corneas, and left in less than 20 minutes. That's how simple the process is. And today, when I speak to families and when they say no for organ donation, I understand it's not an easy decision today. But I get saddened when they say no for eye donation, because we've been talking about eye donation for 50 years in this country. And because it's such a simple process, it has no disfiguration, nothing. You can't see the person has donated the eyes. A cornea is an avascular tissue. There's no bleeding. There's nothing. There was a time when they took out the whole eyeball. That is not happening anymore, my friends. Please seriously think about eye donation. It is such a worthwhile thing to do. Few precautions you have to take. If the corneas dry up, it's of no use to anybody. So if somebody in the house has died and as a family, you are motivated to donate the person's eyes, just close the person's eyes, take some moist cotton and put it on top of the eyes, put the fan off. If possible, put the AC on, but that's not a must. Raise the head slightly, put a pillow or something under the head and call the nearest eye bank. I don't know where are you all logging in from, but NCR has about 10 eye banks. You can call the foundation. We have a 24/7 helpline. It's on our website. You can call the nearest hospital. Eye donation, if you want, will happen. Organ donation, on the other hand, even now, sometimes you as a family may want it, but the system perhaps is not geared up for it. But eye donation has to be done ideally within 6 hours of death. In winters, you can take it up to 8 hours, but be prepared. Preparation is the key. You can't have this conversation later on. These conversations have to be had now, as a family. What is it that we want to do when we are no more, tomorrow, 5 years later, 10 years later, 40 years later, it doesn't matter. Next minute we could die. Nobody knows. None of us knows. And talking about death doesn't make you die. I would have died 14 years ago. All I've done for the last 14 years is talk about death and dying. So that is eye donation. Contraindications to organ donation. I don't think I really need to spend much time on it, because my interest is that you, as a family, as an individual, decide whether you want to be an organ donor or not. When the time comes for organ donation, the experts will perform certain tests and they will decide whether you are a suitable organ donor or not. And even within organs, they will test each organ and only take out organs that are in a condition to be used for someone else. But there are certain overarching contraindications. If you're an active cancer patient, you cannot be an organ donor. Any active infection, malignancy, any active infections like HIV, Hep B, because we do not want the recipients to get these infections. In foreign countries, systems are much defined. They have people with similar infections on the waiting list, so they are matched. But in India, as of now, we are not taking organs from people who have infections like herpes, hepatitis, and HIV/AIDS. Moving on to a few myths that people commonly have when it comes to organ donation, and let me try and clear them for you. If the family agrees to donation, doctors will not try hard to save the patient. If that was happening India would have been pretty high up, it probably would have beaten Spain also. That is absolutely not true. Because when you go to a hospital, the doctors are interested in making you better. You are their primary patient. And their reputation also depends upon treating you better. And these people are not from the transplant team. They're not interested in what's happening in transplant waiting lists and all. Their primary interest is you. And like I said, the option to donate organs is offered only after the person is declared dead. And mind you, that brain death team that I was talking about, it does not have anybody from the transplant team. A transplant surgeon or a transplant anesthetist or a transplant physician cannot be on the brain death declaration. In fact, they're not even allowed to be near the ICU when a brain death person is there. So, as you know, doctors sign up for this oath that the patient is the primary this thing. So please understand, organ donation conversation only starts when death has been declared and not before that. Donor's family will have to pay more money to the hospital. So according to the act, the moment the family says yes to organ donation, their billing stops. Like at 12 o'clock, if I agree to donation, my billing will stop at 12 o'clock. The person continues to be on the ventilator. A lot of expenses incurred for the various tests that are done, but those expenses have to be borne by the hospital or the recipients who are going to get the organ. The family will not have to pay anything extra after they have said yes to the family. Sometimes hospitals, a mark of respect, will waive off the previous fees also. If the person only came in last night, so they will do that as a mark of respect. But according to the law, moment consent is given, billing stops. What if I recover from brain death? When we see the movie, you will realize why there is no recovery from brain death. I'm not a doctor, so my explanation of brain death can never be as good as a doctor, and that's why the film. But brain death is death world over. No one has ever come out of brain death. There is no getting alive because it's an irreversible damage to the brain. The brain cells actually liquefy. There is no coming out of brain death, not to be confused. As coma tests are done, additional tests are done, it's a final matter. If I donate my organs, I'll be born without them in my next birth. I would have really loved to know who out of the audience believes in this, because very often people may have this belief. And I do not question people's views about second life and rebirth. Everybody's entitled to their beliefs. But what is important to understand is that no matter what religion we belong to, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, either we are burnt or we are buried. And the physical body in every case is destroyed. So you're not taking your organs in intact shape to the next life. They are going to be buried when the last rites are be done. So there is really no logic to this myth. It is a myth. Religions forbid organ donation and transplantation. Again, when were these religions and religious texts formulated? There was no transplant happening at that time. There was no organ donation conversation. How can they have anything to say for or against? They have nothing to say. These are all interpretations of religious leaders and people subsequently who do not question. You have to question. If you're such a strong religious person, ask your religious leader, please show me in the religious text where this is written. And in any case, the body belongs to you. And you have the right to decide what you want to do with your body. And every religion strongly talks about dan, giving. And here, what are we talking about? We're talking about Jivan Dan. You're giving life, gift of life. How can any religion or any God have an objection to that? Is something that you need to think about. In fact, many prominent leaders have now very openly come out and endorsed organ donation. Organ donation mutilates the body. Now, that could be a real fear, and families have that fear. And it is important to understand how the body looks once off. So it is a single surgical incision that is made from here till below the navel. Single, like any surgery. It's a cut. It's a surgical cut. All the organs are removed from that one cut. And after the removal of organs, it is surgically stitched up, covered, and handed over to the family with utmost respect. Please understand, this is a person, this is a body that has saved multiple lives. So it is almost treated like God in the hospital. So there, in fact, very often families will say, you've packed the body so beautifully. We would just like now to go straight to the cremation ground. We don't even want to do any, opening of the body in the house. But even if you do, There is nothing physical for anybody to feel upset about. Okay, so that's important to understand. As I come to an end, I would like to introduce you to some of the donor families and the donors that I've had the privilege of interacting and working with, and they make my life so worthwhile. This is I'm 52, so I think it's a young death. Sadly, it was a young death. And this is what the husband, so he's saying, I don't know. We never had this conversation. But I know one thing, that she was a woman who was always wanting to do something for the others, for animals, for poor people. And he said, I think she would have liked to do this. He's saying, on that assumption, I want to say yes to organ donation. And he went ahead and donated her organs. And this is what he said when I went and met him a couple of days later. She died early, but she had a full life and lived completely. She gave so much in her death as well as she did while she was alive. Using all her life, she gave, and I'm so proud that even in her death, she gave so much. So he feels proud about it. That's a very tragic case. That's Sushant, a young second year engineering student. Four boys were carpooling and going for an exam, one of the engineering exams. And they had an accident on the Haryana border. Two boys died on the spot. One escaped with almost nil injuries. This is how life works. We have no control over it. Why two people should have died and why one should have no injuries at all? That's life for you. And Sushant was brought to Gangaram Hospital where we were working. So we work with hospitals. We have the MOUs with the hospital. And Sushant had already lost his mother. So mother was not alive. We spoke to the father. What an amazingly incredible man. And he agreed to donation after we counseled him for some time. And Sushant was a very bright student, always came first. So this is what the father said. Sushant always liked to come first in everything. And sure enough, he was the first one to leave the world too. But mera beta ab saath zindagi mein ji raha hai. Young boy, healthy organs, both his kidneys, liver, both his corneas, heart, and his intestines were transplanted into another young boy who had not eaten solid food in 3 years because he needed an intestine transplant. So that is the beauty, that out of tragedy, something good comes out. It is tragic that he died so early, but that we have no control over. But what we did have control over was what the father decided to do with the death. Beautiful case, Miss Marie Therese Hampatzumian, a French national. She came along with her husband to visit her son who was working in a multinational in Gurgaon. And they did that golden triangle. And for me now, I cannot think of Taj Mahal without thinking of Marie because of this picture. I went to Taj Mahal subsequently. For me, Taj Mahal now in my mind is connected to Marie Therese Hampatzumian. Now, France has what is called the opt-out system. There are opt-out and opt-in systems across the world. Opt-out means every citizen in the country is considered, by default, is considered a donor by the government, unless you write and say, no, I don't want to be a donor. India has opt-in. None of you is considered a donor, unless you write through various ways that I will come to say, I want to be an organ donor. So in a country like France, it is a default choice to be a donor. So we didn't have to work very hard to convince the father and the son. They said we always talked about organ donation and this is what we want to do, and see what they've written. My mother always talked about organ donation. Henceforth, India will be connected to our family history for eternity. And one of her kidneys went to an army jawan in the army hospital. So there is this organ donation has no borders. We have subsequently have 5-6 more foreign nationals who donated in our country. This is Tej Ramji. At that time, my oldest donor, 88, but now subsequently we've had older donors. And look at what the daughter said. Even though I lost my father, I look back at his death with pride and happiness that he could save the lives of others. It gives me a very good feeling. So Tej Ramji was the on the board of Gangaram Hospital and had always talked about organ donation. But when he died, we thought, oh, 88, what kind of organs will we get out of an 88-year-old man? But he had lived a healthy physical life. He had lived a good life, and both his kidneys and liver were retrieved. But when you take out organs from such an old person, you will not give it to a 20-year-old. You will obviously give it to slightly older people. So 3 people were benefited from his. And that's what I wanted to leave you with, this thought that while you will miss the person who goes away, while death is always associated with sadness and grief and loss, but something that one can do with death makes you feel proud and happy, as you saw from what these family members said. So coming to the foundation, this is what the foundation does. It creates public awareness, which is what I'm doing right now, because we think public does not have enough avenues to learn about organ donation. But we also understand that just making the public aware is not enough. Our system, our infrastructure as yet is not geared to make organ donation happen. So we work very closely with hospitals. We do a lot of training. We get into MOUs. So we place a person there. This person counsels is the most important person in this whole thing, transplant coordinators, as the law calls them. It is a very difficult job, very sensitive job, but the job becomes easier if the family is aware about brain death, if the family had spoken about brain death, whether we talking to somebody who's never heard about organ donation, because public trust in our government, in our private hospitals is very less. So they already think, acha, patient ko maar bhi diya, the bill bhi bana diya, now they want the organs also. That's the typical psychology of families. So it has to move away from them. And that's why we feel public needs to be told about brain death, needs to be told about organ donation, and needs to go back and speak to families. And we work with governments. Health is a state subject. I'm very happy to share with you that 3 years ago, we started work in Manipur. Imagine a small state like Manipur in Northeast. We started working with the government hospital there, and we've helped them start transplants. Already 27 living transplants have been done. And on the 2nd of last month, we had our first deceased organ donation. Given the current scenario of Manipur, I'm sure most of you know the madness that is going on in Manipur right now. So that is what we do. What can you do? A, get informed, get educated. Don't just sit there like an idiot, because people will take advantage of people who are not informed. So understand this process. Even if you don't want to donate organs, understand what brain death is, because very often doctors will come out and tell you, oh, your patient, there's been a lot of damage to the brain. There are no reflexes. We don't see much chance of survival. Very often the person has died. So if you ask intelligent questions, the doctor will have the confidence to give you right information. So get informed, and then you pledge to be a donor, that when I'm not there in this world, I would like my organs to be donated if I'm in a position to do so. But that's not enough, because in our country, pledging is not a legal activity. It's only an expression of your willingness to be a donor. In our country, family is the final decision maker. So even if you're pledged, you can pledge through donor cards, through our website, through the government website. You can also pledge through your driving license. We pushed the government and made that happen. Now I think the government is trying to link it to the Aadhaar card. It doesn't matter. You have multiple avenues to pledge. But even if you don't pledge, if you're interested in this cause, go back and speak to your family. Because even if you have not pledged and the family says yes, it's a yes. Even if you're pledged and the family says no, it's a no. So please, that conversation with the family for us is the most important thing. And if you are convinced, encourage others. So that is the role that you can play. You can become a volunteer with us. You can volunteer either your time or your skills, depending upon what your skills are. I just want to leave you with this course that we came up with during COVID time, because we got a lot of requests from people who said, we don't want just to be aware, we want to contribute to the cause. So we created this beautiful ambassador course, and we've already got about 1,000 people who've undergone training in this. If you sit down in one go, you can finish the module in 4 hours. But once you are put onto the module, you have up to 3 months to complete it. So after you complete the online module, we have a 2-hour online interactive session to decide how you will use this knowledge. Many people want to do sessions like the one I'm doing right now in schools, colleges, in their office. Many people want to do some social media interaction. Other people may just want to raise funds. We have a program called Anudan for poor patients requiring transplants. As you know, transplants in our country are largely happening in private hospitals, very unaffordable for the poor people. So we have set up a program where we support especially children through that program. You can decide what you want to do with that knowledge and with that. And with that, I come to an end of my session. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take. If Varun, if you could play the film, it's 4.5 minutes. I think it'd be good. So I'm just stopping my sharing. Yeah.
So ma'am, shall we take the question first, or you want to go ahead
Sure.
with the movie?
Whatever.
Yeah, I could see. So everyone, before we we end our session with the movie, can we have your questions in the comment section? Anybody who wants to ask question, I could see one question. Is kidney transplant possible for adopted child?
Yes, what an interesting question. It is, if you're, it's a legally adopted child, it is same as a blood relative. So definitely, is that what the question was? I hopefully,
Yes.
but yeah. So it has to be a legally adopted child, and government of India would look at it as a living blood relative. That's not a problem at all.
So, ma'am, another question is, suppose there is a fully functional hospital with all the facilities of ICU, the surgeons, the facilities. If I, as a hospital, want to start, transplant facilities in my hospital, what, according to you, is the first step my hospital should do to get the transplant things,
Okay,
in
Varun.
place?
So interestingly, as I was telling you before the session started, we were in Bangalore partnering with IIM Ahmedabad and Bangalore. So Government of India introduced in a recent amendment the concept of non-transplant organ retrieval centers, which means you may not be a hospital that's doing transplant, but you want to be an organ that a hospital that allows people to donate organs and retrieve organs so that it can be shared with others. Now, traditionally, historically, only the transplant centers have shown interest in this program because it is a lot of hard work, it is a lot of time, it is expenses. So it makes sense for hospitals that are running transplant units to make donation happen so that they'll get organs so that they will do perform a transplant. Having said that, people are not all going and dying in transplant centers. They are dying in just about, it could be any hospital. So certain guidelines have been laid down by the hospital, basic ICU facilities and all are there. You still have to apply for a brain death committee. Still cannot, it has to be a government approved brain death committee. You still have to hire a transplant coordinator, person who's trained to speak to families. Government of India has put provisions to cover the expenses of maintenance of a brain dead person in these hospitals. Since these hospitals are not going to get money through transplants, they're not expected to incur any expenses. Whatever the expenses are, I think it's up to a lakh. Or that, and it is about that much, and that you can take from the government, from your state authority. So yeah, yeah.
Ma'am, one more question which I received before the session is there any clash when the organ donation is associated with any medical legal cases? For example, if it is a suicide case, if it is a case of road traffic accident, on those matters, how is the is
So
this step?
most of our cases, Varun, are primarily medical legal cases. Like I said, all accident cases are medical legal cases. All falling down from some height, from the building, all of these are where the cause of death is unnatural and needs to be certified and needs to be identified is medical legal case. So yes, police gets involved and the forensic gets involved, and that's why we do a lot of sensitization with the police. We do a lot of education of the police and of the forensic people, and we always tell hospitals that if you start this program, establish a relationship with your nearest police station. Tell them, because they don't know. Sometimes they will just say no because they don't know what you're asking them to do and they don't want to be part of it. So it's good to do that education beforehand. And in a medical legal case, when a death happens, the body becomes the custody of the police till all the processes are done, after the post-mortem is done and the body is handed back to the family. So police plays a very, very important role. And some questions are slowly coming, but I think so. But there are guidelines being laid down in the act. You can even show the police, but more than showing them guidelines, and the idea is to create a relationship, make them a part of this process. Say that you are a very important person and you have a very important role to play in this process is what is needed.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, another question is Bhuvana is asking, like, she's running an NGO and her objective is healthcare and health education. Can she start an awareness program?
Oh, sure. Where is Bhuvana? Which part of the city? Which part of the country? Is it Bangalore? Is everybody from Bangalore?
Bhuvana, if you can mention further more details, ma'am would be able to help you
And
with
Bhuvana, you
your.
can reach out to me separately, pallavi@mohanfoundation.org. Just look up the Mohan Foundation website, reach out to me, and we'll be very happy to help you start awareness in your area. We're happy to provide you all the collaterals that are needed. You could go through the ambassador course, because if you are going to start creating awareness. We want you to have you're in Karnataka Koppal district. So we have an office in Bangalore, Bhuvana, and I can connect you with them. Please reach out to me and I will take you through the process.
Ma'am, question is it mandatory to have a mortuary in the super specialty hospital in case of brain death case?
No, no. In fact, you do not have mortuaries in private hospitals. Mortuaries are mortuary, sorry, not a forensic. Yeah, yeah. Mortuary to hona padega.
Okay. And ma'am,
What you
can a
know?
patient suffering from cancer and serious cardiac problems donate their organs?
Okay, so cancer, like I said, no. Active cancer, you cannot be a donor, but certain cancers allow for eye donation. So that is something one can look at. And serious cardiac, they will do. So maybe they won't take the heart, maybe they'll take the other organs. So it's depending
Correct.
upon the health of a particular organ or what is happening. So they will do all those tests and they will decide. So if it's a weak heart, they will obviously, in any case, they usually do not take hearts from people who are older than 45, 50. Lungs also. Heart and lung require young donors. Even pancreas require young donors under 45, 50. Whereas for kidney and liver, you can go up to a higher age.
But ma'am, requiring for a young donor, does it reduce the number of donors?
There is the very fact that only brain dead donors can donate, as it is, reduces our donor pool. Then the fact that they go and die in hospitals that are not looking at organ donation and nobody will even ask them further reduces the pool. So the fact that government hospitals, which are major trauma centers where mostly
Mhm.
accident cases are taken, are not so active in this program, reduces the donor pool. So a lot has to be done to increase the donor pool. Yeah, that's right. Does increase the donor pool.
So, ma'am, one more question. Can we retrieve organs from an unclaimed body?
Okay, so the Act has provisions for unclaimed bodies, and it says that you wait for 48 hours, and then an ad is put out in the newspaper, and the medical superintendent of that hospital, or in case if it was a prisoner, so the jail authority can take this decision to donate. But to be very honest, Varun, it's never happened. We've never had a donation from an unclaimed body because even with claimed bodies, we have such shortage of ventilators in government hospitals. So usually, no. And there's very little motivation to put an ad out. So it requires someone very special, a very special superintendent to take. But the Act has provisions for unclaimed bodies once you pass these
What
rules.
a session, ma'am. I am a fan. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were able to make this up. Such an informative session in all these years. I mean, the entire Pan India Medline hospitals have joined this session, and many are medical professional, medical directors, and mid-level senior stakeholders. And I'm sure that they have got some amazing facts about organ donation. Even I have run a lot of transplant programs. When we do pledge, we ask people, we give them awareness handouts. But this in-depth detail, this was the first time I'm going through. Thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure for all of us to have
Thank
you
you
as
for
a
having
speaker.
me. I just would
Uh,
like to tell the people out there, if you are a hospital, uh, think about it. Think about becoming a non-transplant organ retrieval center. I think it's our responsibility as institutions to provide our citizens an opportunity to be donors in their hospitals, and it can only make you feel happy. It only gives a feel good feel. And for all those others out there, think about it. Get knowledgeable. Speak to your family. I mean, there is very often we can't do much with our lives. I met this person in the flight the other day, and he's saying, "Ma'am, पूरी जिंदगी बीत गई आप कुछ किया ही नहीं आप लोग तो इतना कर रहे हो." I said everybody can do something, and he went back and he organized a session for about 2,500 employees. That's his contribution. Everybody contributes in different ways, but really, death is inevitable. We can do nothing about it. But what a beautiful thing that can come out of death is my take on this.
Ma'am, one last question. I believe a lot of people wants to understand this, how they can associate with Mohan Foundation.
Please reach out to us, write to me, like I said, Pallavi at mohanfoundation.org. Depending upon what you're willing to bring on the table, what your skills are, what kind of time you can give, what kind of interest you have, we will figure out what you can do for the foundation. Basically, it's not for the foundation, it's for organ donation.
Perfect.
There is,
Um,
we have a lot of online courses. I think somebody just asked a question on
yeah.
transplant coordination. We have a lot of online courses. Like we said, we have 5 minutes left in our meeting. We have a 1 month transplant coordinator course, and we have a 1 year transplant. Go on the website. It's a it's a little crowded, but it's a very informative website. Otherwise, just feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help whatever way I can.
Perfect. So, ma'am, can we run the video? Subhashri, can you please help us with the video?
Have I lost you? Okay. Yeah, Varun.
Ma'am, I was like, can we run the video?
Yeah, please do that.
Sure. Subhashri, we can't hear.
No, your voice has not started as yet. Only when the face will come that the sound will start.
Okay.
नमस्कार, मैं डॉक्टर संदीप वैश्य हूँ और मैं पिछले 20 सालों से बतौर न्यूरोसर्जन प्रैक्टिस कर रहा हूँ। अगले 5 मिनटों में मैं आपको यह बताऊंगा कि ब्रेन डेथ क्या है। ब्रेन डेथ या न्यूरोलॉजिकल डेथ ऐसा शब्द है जिसे लोग ठीक से समझ नहीं पाते। वो समझते हैं कि ब्रेन डेथ का मतलब है कोमा में चले जाना। यह एनिमेशन आपको विस्तार से बताएगा कि ब्रेन डेथ क्या है और यह किस प्रकार कोमा से काफ़ी अलग है। आइए हम पहले दिमाग की संरचना को समझते हैं। दिमाग के 2 हिस्से होते हैं, कॉर्टेक्स और ब्रेनस्टेम। कॉर्टेक्स दिमाग का बड़ा हिस्सा होता है और ब्रेनस्टेम छोटा, जो वास्तव में रीढ़ की नस का ऊपरी भाग होता है। कॉर्टेक्स हमारी अहम गतिविधियों को चलाता है, जैसे पढ़ना, लिखना और बोलना। यदि कॉर्टेक्स डैमेज हो जाए तो इंसान कोमा में पहुंच सकता है। वो होश खो बैठता है, लेकिन कोमा में होने के बावजूद भी वो इंसान दर्द महसूस कर सकता है या किसी हरकत पर प्रतिक्रिया दे सकता है। कभी कभी कोमा में पहुंचे व्यक्ति की चेतना दोबारा लौट भी आती है, किंतु ब्रेन डेथ कोमा से अलग है। इस शब्द का मतलब है कि दिमाग मर चुका है, कॉर्टेक्स और ब्रेनस्टेम दोनों। ब्रेनस्टेम मानव शरीर का केंद्रीय नर्वस सिस्टम और चेतना का केंद्र होता है। यदि ब्रेनस्टेम मर जाएगा तो सांस बंद हो जाएगी। जब दिल को ऑक्सीजन मिलनी बंद हो जाएगी तो वो भी मर जाएगा और धड़कना बंद कर देगा, और बाकी अंग भी ऑक्सीजन की कमी की वजह से मर जाएंगे। ब्रेन डेथ कैसे होती है? यदि किसी व्यक्ति को सिर पर बहुत जोर की चोट लगे या बड़ा स्ट्रोक आए तो दिमाग में सूजन शुरू हो सकती है। चूंकि कपाल या स्कल बेहद सख्त हड्डी का बना होता है, इसलिए वो दिमाग को फैलने नहीं देता। डॉक्टर दवा देकर या ऑपरेशन कर सूजन को कम करने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अगर उन्हें कामयाबी न मिली तो दिमाग पर दबाव बहुत बढ़ सकता है, जो कि दिल की धड़कन से भी ज़्यादा दबाव होगा। ऐसा होने पर दिल ऑक्सीजन से भरपूर खून को दिमाग में पहुंचाने में नाकाम रहता है। जब दिमाग को ऑक्सीजन नहीं मिलेगी तो ब्रेन सेल्स मर जाएंगे। वास्तव में ब्रेन सेल्स एकदम से नहीं मरते। इससे एक प्रक्रिया शुरू होती है जिसे लाइसिस कहते हैं, जिसमें ब्रेन सेल्स गलने लगते हैं। गलने की इस प्रक्रिया के बाद ब्रेन डेथ की स्थिति को फिर से पलटाया नहीं जा सकता। एक बार ब्रेनस्टेम मर जाए तो व्यक्ति सांस लेना बंद कर देता है और दिल के बाकी अंग ऑक्सीजन के अभाव में मर जाते हैं। हमें कैसे पता लगेगा कि ब्रेनस्टेम की मौत हो चुकी है? आधुनिक चिकित्सा विज्ञान में यह तय करने के कई तरीके हैं कि ब्रेनस्टेम मर चुका है या नहीं। एक तरीका है उन न्यूरोलॉजिकल गतिविधियों की जांच करना जिन्हें ब्रेनस्टेम नियंत्रित करता है। यदि व्यक्ति होश में नहीं है, सांस नहीं ले सकता, निगल और खांस नहीं सकता, पुतलियां रोशनी पर प्रतिक्रिया नहीं करती, तब ये सभी इस बात के संकेत हैं कि ब्रेनस्टेम की मौत हो चुकी है। भारत में ट्रांसप्लांट ऑफ ह्यूमन ऑर्गन एक्ट ऑफ 1994 में कुछ टेस्ट बताए गए हैं जिन्हें 4 डॉक्टरों की टीम द्वारा किया जाता है। इसके बाद ही किसी व्यक्ति को ब्रेन डेड घोषित किया जाता है। ये परीक्षण 6 घंटों के अंतराल पर 2 बार किए जाते हैं। लेकिन यह कैसे संभव है कि एक ब्रेन डेड मरीज का दिल धड़कता रहे? दिल को ऑक्सीजन कहाँ से मिलती है? ब्रेन डेथ से पहले मरीज को सांस लेने में मदद देने के लिए वेंटिलेटर पर रखा जाता है और उसके बाद ब्रेनस्टेम मर जाता है। भले ही ब्रेनस्टेम मर चुका हो और फेफड़े काम न कर रहे हो, फिर भी दिल धड़कता रहता है क्योंकि उसे वेंटिलेटर से कृत्रिम ढंग से ऑक्सीजन मिलती रहती है। यदि ब्रेनस्टेम की मौत हो गई हो और बाकी का दिमाग भी मर चुका हो, तो क्या चीज़ दिल को धड़कने का आदेश देती है? दिल दिमाग से अलग है। यह एक ऑटोमेटिक पंप होता है। जब तक दिल को वेंटिलेटर से ऑक्सीजन मिलती रहेगी, वो कुछ समय तक धड़कना जारी रखेगा। ब्रेन डेथ के बाद यदि मृतक को वेंटिलेटर पर रखा जाए, तो कितनी देर तक शव का दिल धड़कना जारी रहेगा? दिल कुछ घंटों तक धड़क सकता है, कभी कभी कई हफ्तों तक भी। औसतन दिल 2 या 3 दिनों तक धड़कता है और फिर मर जाता है। ब्रेनस्टेम की मौत का मतलब है कि मृत्यु हो चुकी है और इसे पलटाया नहीं जा सकता, और बाकी सभी अंगों का फेल होना रोका नहीं जा सकता। ब्रेन डेथ के बाद आज तक कोई भी व्यक्ति फिर नहीं उठा है। यदि ब्रेन डेथ का मतलब है कि मरीज मर चुका है, तो मृतक के शरीर में गर्माहट क्यों होती है और वो सोता हुआ सा क्यों लगता है? इंसान मर चुका होता है, लेकिन उसके अंगों जैसे कि दिल को कुछ दिनों के लिए जीवित रखा जाता है, जिससे वो सोता हुआ सा लगता है। किसी अंग को शरीर से बाहर रखकर भी ऑक्सीजन देकर जिंदा रखा जा सकता है, लेकिन एक बार दिमाग की मौत हो गई तो इसका मतलब है कि इंसान मर चुका है। ब्रेन डेड व्यक्ति दिमाग की मौत से पीड़ित नहीं है, वह मृत है। जब ब्रेन डेथ की पुष्टि हो जाती है, तो मृतक के परिजन इस सवाल से परेशान होते हैं कि अब क्या करें। तो क्या उसके परिजनों को तब तक प्रतीक्षा करनी पड़ती है जब तक दिल धड़कना बंद ना कर दे, या फिर वो यह इच्छा जाहिर कर सकते हैं कि बाकी लोगों की ज़िंदगी बचाने के लिए वो अंग दान करना चाहते हैं? यह एक मुश्किल फैसला है, और हर परिवार को वह करने का हक है जो वह करना चाहता है।
Yeah. Oh, death. It's not coma.
Wonderful, ma'am. Indeed, very informative. So I guess we can end our session here. Um, thank you so much, ma'am, once again from entire Medland team and all the participants. I would also like to thank all the participants to be very diligent in throughout all the expert sessions that Medland conducts. We would be sharing the YouTube link of this session on our LinkedIn page. You can reach out to us on our LinkedIn page, Medlearn, and you can also visit our website for any queries. You will also find the recording of this session in case you would have missed any segment. You can go to that link and you can revisit. Thank you so much. I wish you all a very wonderful learning experience and have a great evening ahead. Ma'am, thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me. Pleasure. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.